Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
So every Shabbat, Erev Shabbat, Friday evening, what we do is we have like 10 minutes of song and meditation just to get a little bit warmed up even before the service begins. So let's go ahead and start with Shalom Aleichem. You can find that on
page 627, the blue numbers in brackets, or page 323 if you just have the Shabbat edition of Mishkan Tevilah. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bo'echem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Turn the page just a little bit over to the song Yedid Nefesh. That's on page 636. 332 in the regular numbers, 636 in the blue. Why? Because we both begin Shabbat, during the Kabbalah Shabbat with Yedid Nefesh, speaking of this added soul, this added spirit, and we conclude Shabbat singing Yedid Nefesh at the Havdalah. So, Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, Yedid Nefesh, Ava Rachaman, Meshoch Avdecha, Eretzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayal, Yishtachaveh, Emul Hadarecha, Ye'erav lo yeridutecha, minofetzu bechotam. Yalalam balai, yalalam lai, yalalam lai, yalalam balai, yalalam lai. Ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la. This past week we had the observance, the very beginning of the week, the observance of Martin Luther King Day. And as we took time to have programs and to consider and reflect on the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we came across one of the songs that he loved to have sung and he would sing on the marches. And I think it's sort of an anthem that all of us can have right now, because we had from Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and over the weekend we had programs. Then there was the inauguration on Wednesday, and it's almost like a whole new chapter is opening up for this nation as we reflect on the heroes of the past, the heroes of today, the heroes yet to come. And why the heroes yet to come? Because they have to know, the kinder and the kinder's kinder, the children and the children's children have to know that they have the strength, they have the resources, let them have the determination that they too will overcome no matter what challenges they face. So we thought we'd sing on this little few moments before the service this song. I think many of you know it. We sang it at the healing service, and it was a hit. So you guys can sing along too. Ready? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. That song was written over 120 years ago by Charles Tyndall. Slightly different words. Pete Seeger updated it in the 60s. And that's the way it is with songs that transcend the generations. Each generation adds new words, new feelings, but the idea behind them, they translate throughout time. And I hope all of us, indeed, will overcome the fear, the sense of oppression, the overwhelming experiences that we've had dealing with the COVID and the social divisions that have just racked this country. So we have just a minute or so before the service. So let's get ready for just a few moments. How about a Yom Zeh Yisrael? You sing that. I'm going to talk to Lisa in a second.
Okay. Yom Zeh Yisrael is on page 634. Yom Zeh Yisrael Ora v'simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael Ora v'simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. Tzivita pekudim b'ma'amat Sinai, Shabbat u'moadim lishmor b'choshanai, laharoch lefanai maset v'arucha.
Shabbat,
Shabbat menucha.
Yom Zeh Yisrael Ora v'simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha.
Yom Zeh Yisrael Ora v'simcha,
Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat menucha. That's a good one to get you right in the mood for our service. I think we're right at 6 o'clock, right? So we can go ahead and begin the service. We're on page 120, and in just about a moment, Rabbi Susan, you're going to go ahead and light the candles, and if you've at home, if your candles are already lit, that's okay too. Just imagine that you're in this beautiful Abrams Family Chapel. And right now it's just Lisa, Susie, and me. But just imagine all of you are here, and one day, not too far in the future, God willing, we will be back here. Maybe there'll be so many people who say, we can't even fit in the Abrams Chapel, we have to go to the Zwerin Sanctuary. And I was talking to some congregants earlier, and they just can't wait to come in. They said, can you imagine what it's going to be like when we can first come back after all of these months that we've been apart from each other? And the first thing I could think of, we better have one heck of a oneg. So maybe it's still too early to start baking for that, especially because it may be after Passover that we'll have the chance. But regardless, there will be that time. So just imagine that we're here, and as you are going to lead us in the lighting of the candles to say, Shabbat is here.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lechadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. So now as the lights have been kindled, we gather together, whether it's just with your loved one, maybe in the same room, maybe there's on Zoom. If there's Kinder, that's even better, to be able to have people around. And we have the Sabbath blessing, a Sabbath prayer.
May the Lord protect and defend you. May God always shield you from shame. May you come to be in Israel a shining name. May you be like Ruth and like Esther. May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord, and keep them from the stranger's ways. May God bless you and grant you long life.
May the Lord fulfill our Sabbath prayer for you.
May God keep you and shield you from strife.
May God in God's wisdom always care for you.
May the Lord protect and defend you. May the Lord preserve you from pain. Favor them, O Lord, with happiness and peace. Oh, hear our Sabbath prayer. Amen. May the Lord protect and defend you. Amen.
And now, with the Sabbath blessings upon us, we turn for the Kabbalat Shabbat. But as we make that transition from song to song, I wanted to remind us of some of the lessons that we try to impart. Now, we get lessons sometimes from the Mishnah, from the Gemara, from the great commentators throughout our generations. And sometimes we get lessons from the heroes in modern day. And one of the heroes that many of us had growing up was Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank, who just died this week, this day, I think 86 years old, and truly one of the heroes of the baseball lore, as the old Milwaukee Braves and the Atlanta Braves, and hit and made more homers without enhancements than any other person ever. And this was this little piece that was sent to me by our Temple Sinai member, Jim Stone. Jim is a long-time announcer in baseball, was the announcer for the San Diego Padres for a long time. Now, of course, he loves the Rockies. So he's moved here as a Temple Sinai member, and he said, Rick, this was one of the pieces. He says that one of his close friends who managed in the big leagues and worked for the Braves front office told me about one of the conversations that he had with Hammer and Hank Aaron. He said he wasn't most proud of the 755 home runs, but rather he was most proud of three things. Now, as parents and grandparents, I want us to pay real attention to these three things, because these are lessons for our children and our children's children. The three things that Hammer and Hank Aaron, the home run king, was most proud of. One, he never missed a sign. You know, when the The third base coach flashes a sign. He never missed a sign. 2, he was never late for a meeting or a workout. He was never like, I'm the best player in the major leagues. I'm the hero. I'm the best one on the team. I can come and go as I please. Never missed a meeting or a workout. And 3, no manager, coach, or teammate ever had to tell Hammer and Hank Aaron to play hard, to run hard, or to treat the game with respect. Those are 3 fabulous lessons: to be attentive to the people that we're with, to be respectful by never coming late and being there with enthusiasm, and to enjoy life and live it to the fullest. And as we are about to begin our Kabbalat Shabbat, I think that was one of those lessons that we can say, you know what, that's what Sabbath's about. You pause, you consider what the week was about, what your life is about, and you add to it. How about?
And so we'll add to it with song on page 130, blue numbers in brackets, Lechuna Ranana. Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Ladonai. Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Letzu Yishenu, Nikama Fana Betoda. Naria, Naria, Letzu Yishenu, Bizmirot Naria Lo. Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Ladonai. Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Lechuna Ranana, Ladonai.
How about this one right in there? You want to do that one?
Whatever.
You name it.
Well, I'm just following the cues.
Okay.
But you're...
Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Netager haaretz, Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Netager haaretz. Yeramayam, Yeramayam, Yeramayam umlo, Yeramayam, Yeramayam, Yeramayam umlo. Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, B'tager haaretz.
And we continue on page 136 with, is that right? Yeah.
Yep,
Psalm
29.
29, Mizmor LeDavid.
We're going to go right just so right all the way through.
All the way through.
Why not?
Okay.
Okay.
All the way through.
Why did I mention that? Because you can shorten things up. But then my family, we did it last week. You know, every week we sort of go back and forth. Rabbi Jordy and Dan will be here one Friday night, and Susan and I will be there on Shabbat morning, back and forth. So we were doing our service last Friday night, and we went all the way through it, and they said, you know what, you should go through it, because if you skip, then people get lost. We don't want anyone to be lost. You know, this is the Torah portion in which the children of Israel are finally leaving Egypt after 400 years of slavery. No one got lost.
No one got lost. Neither will you as we go through this.
They wandered for 40 years in the desert, but they didn't
get
lost.
We're not going to get lost because we're not skipping any lines and we're not repeating any words. So just plow on through, hold hands, and here we go. Mizmor LeDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai, Kavod va'od. Havu l'Adonai kivod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai mehadar kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim. Adonai al mayim rabim, kol Adonai ba'koach, kol Adonai behadar, kol Adonai shuvei arazim, וישבר אדוני את ארזי לבנון, ויקידם כמו עגל לבנון, וסיריון כמו ורעמים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יחולל לעיינות, ויחשוף יערות ובהיכלו כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למה בו ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. יא לה 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 לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה.
Now, if that doesn't warm me up, I don't know what will. Just turn the pages, see the next page, 138. We welcome the Sabbath as a bride.
But skipping verses. 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Okay.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Hitoreri, ki va'orei kumi ori, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. For verse 9, we rise and face the entrance to our room, to our home, to welcome Shabbat as if she were a bride. Bo'ui v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Bo'ui kala, bo'ui kala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Please be seated.
Let's go ahead and turn the page. There's a special psalm for the Sabbath day, Psalm 92. It's on page 140 in the blue numbers, or 22 in the regular numbers. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון.
Right before we have the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144, another reminder that wherever we are, here in this beautiful Abrams Chapel, or in this Warren Sanctuary, in our beautiful building at Temple Sinai, in your homes, out in the park, when you're walking by the way, wherever you are, those are entrances to holiness. And we can find that little paragraph at the bottom of 145. Let's read that together. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועל מה דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביום איכון, ובחייך בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, ואמרו, יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קדושה לעילה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו. We continue on page 146 as we rise for Baruch Hu.
Yan la 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 la, yan la 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 la, ya la 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 la, yam la 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 la, yan la 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 la, ya la la, yan la 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 la, yan la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Vaed HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. This is a time of change. And so on page 149, we read this version of the Ma'ariv Aravim, the evening prayer. We say, this is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch Ata Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Alkein Adonai Eloheinu, b'sochmeinu u'v'kumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratcha, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגן יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
אוהב עמו ישראל.
אמן.
שמע
ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Please be seated. We continue together on page 154, chanting Ve'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Ve'ahavta, the end of it reminds us that it was God who led us out of Egypt. And as Rick said, this is Shabbat Bo, where we learn how the Israelites left Egypt. And it wasn't just one or two, but it was everybody together, the entire community. And that's where we are as a nation too, that it's not just some people, but it's all of us together, that we all have to march forward together, give each other strength as we journey toward the future. We say together on the top of 157 this prayer of redemption, the prayer that looks forward. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternal Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and singing together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה מרים, זה ליאנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
קהל ישראל.
Amen. Go ahead and turn to page 161. There's a version of the Hashkivenu prayer, the evening prayer, asking God for peace, reminding us that we have tomorrow to wake up for blessings in life. Page 161 at the very top. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'akol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'akol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'akol amo Yisrael.
Come on, we can sing Vishamru. Everyone, get ready. We're on the next page.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Every Erev Shabbat, what we do, we rise and we sing together the chant, the first three of the Amidah, the Avod, the Gevurot, and Kedusha on Erev Shabbat, and then we take silence to allow everyone to continue at their own pace, in their own way, to bring in the Shabbos. So on page 164, if you're able, please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Aboteinu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Chanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avod ve'imachol, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'nechem, L'man Shmo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Saram. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei metim atah Rav lo Hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid haGashem, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechayei metim berachemim ravim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umkayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bar gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memir umchayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah chayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei chametim. Atah kadosh, v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yalalucha sela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
lefanecha, Adonai tsuri, suri v'go'ali, Adonai tsuri v'go'ali.
The meditation that Susan just sang is the prayer that the things that we have in our hearts will come to our mouths and be sincere expressions of our feelings. And I don't think there's any prayer that expresses that hope more passionately than the Mishaberach U'Fuah Shlema, the prayer for healing that we have. Just yesterday, we had our healing service, and many people tuned in, and others just said, Rick, I can't tune in, but can you read the names? And I do each day, every morning, every evening, we read the prayers for those that are struggling. And we always make sure that we mention as well those who are the caregivers, the loved ones who are helping to nurse, to love, to care, to inspire, sometimes to nudge those who are struggling with their health to say, don't give up. And we're here. And I want to give a little shout out as well. Lisa Thorner has been so amazing with Barbara Letties and a whole group, a team that has been making these lasagnas. And many of them are being delivered. We need a few more people to help deliver them. But we have some bakers and who are making these vegetarian lasagnas. And they're nurturing, they're warm. It's just a gift. So if you can drive, that would be helpful as we get them from one person to the other. And if you can bake, there's a whole team as well. But thank you to Barbara Letties, of course, to Lisa Thorner and their whole committee. So as we nurture the soul, let's also ask for God's blessings for the body. Page 371, a prayer for healing. And I want to mention tonight especially Ryan Alpert and Mike Babbage, Grace Bach and Emily Belstock, Samantha Bernstein, Paul Bonilla, Steve Bolcom, Arlene and Sydney Brandt, Harold Cohen, Joseph Michael Connor, Cindy Coons, Frank and Aaron DeSena, Jay Dworkin, Marty Einhorn, Ron Epstein, Ellen Falk, Stan Farber, Jack Fisher, Walter Francis, Kelly Gates, Morris Ginsburg, Wendy Glasser, Marlene Gottleman, Marcia Gold, Cheryl Goodman, Lois Haas, Jerry Hart, Miriam Koopman, Cassidy Ipnick, Oliver Jack, Marilyn Jordan, Stephen Kofler, Lori Lavenhar, Fred and Judy Lazar, Audrey and Larry Lazar, Adrian Levy, Juanita Loreneco, Dina Marks, Mary Ann May, Hugh Miles, Nevitt Montgomery, Diane Cushman Neal, Raphael Ben Ruvain Ufega, Bernie Rogoff, Alan Rosenberg, Shari Roth, Diana Sevilla, Brad Schneider, John Schuler, Ed Schultz, Daniel and Callista Schwartz, Roz Schwartz, Norm Sheldon, Joshua Singer, Mark Sorkin, Sheldon Sperling, Ed Steinberg, Betty Stone, Barbara Susan, Yona Victor, Brian Utzler, Marlene Waldbaum, Jim Walker, Valerie Wasserman, Dorothy Whitty, Jill Witchlands, Esther Jenkinson, and Aidan Zenon. As we think of them, let us sing the song of healing on page 371.
Mishebeirach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeirach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with Refuah Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal Spirit, and let us say, Amen.
As I mentioned during our little song session earlier, this week began with the celebration of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we paused and we reflected on his life and the things that he braved. He fought for civil rights, and he faced ferocious opposition. He fought for justice. And Dr. King frequently drew upon the Torah and the lessons of our people to build up his strength. Because when you face opposition, when you face the challenges and the setbacks of trying to lead a movement, especially one that faced such obstacles as he did, especially in the Jim Crow South of the 60s, he had to find inspiration someplace, from strength someplace, from courage from someplace, and he found it in the Torah. He found it in the story of redemption of our Israelite ancestors from Egyptian slavery. Now, one of the things that he communicated at the end of his life, Dr. King said that he had a dream, that he had a vision of the promised land. And he also spoke about the reality that he had, the realization that he may not actually get to that promised land. And he said, though I'm standing there and I can look over the Jordan, I can see the promised land, he said, I may not get there. But that didn't cause him to back off. That didn't cause him to lose heart. Rather, he realized that the courage and the strength that he was able to muster, he could then give to the next generation to inspire them. That our role as leaders, as teachers, as parents, as loved ones, as members of a community is not just for where we are right now, but rather to also establish the foundation that will help those who are coming after us, to give them the wherewithal by which they can continue the struggle. After the courageous efforts for freedom, after the long trudge through the wilderness, Dr. King realized that it is not always our privilege to witness and experience the goal fulfilled. Nevertheless, he and the leaders, the parents, and the grandparents of every generation know that we have an obligation. We strive and we struggle and we teach so that when the children ask, as they do in this week's Torah portion, Bo, is including the last of the 4 plagues against Egypt. And there was the instructions that Moses and Miriam and Aaron had for the children of Israel. And the Torah anticipates the questions they would have. And they say, you know what, they may not ask it this generation because they are in the midst of it. But next year and the year after, and certainly the generations to come, they're going to say, Mazot, what is this all about? Why are we still observing those days? Why are we still observing this Passover Seder? Why are we still observing a Martin Luther King Day? Because each generation and each year, if you don't teach it, it could possibly be forgotten. As I mentioned, Dr. King, found inspiration from this week's Torah portion. He read those 4 last plagues, and he understood and he taught, found wisdom from the fact that on that fearsome night when the destroying angel passed over the houses of the Israelites, that they found a moment of redemption. And it was on this night that Leil Shemurim, the Torah said, then the Israelites were able to realize that this is our one sliver of opportunity. And so let us get whatever we can. Let us pack whatever goods that we have. Let's not even wait for the dough that we have needed to rise. Let us gather it up and wrap it in our cloth and put it on our shoulders and get what we can and get out while it's possible. And Moses and Miriam and Aaron, they said, when the time comes to move forward, to take advantage of the promise of freedom, you have to get the children moving. Now that's a hard lesson too. And Dr. King found that inspiration again, from this week's Torah portion, saying that opportunities don't come around all the time. Soon, if you don't take advantage of them, you'll fall back and you'll find that there are new challenges, and it's really hard to teach a lesson to those who have forgotten why we even try. There's a passage that I love, that I share often about the struggle that we have, because on that night of Leil Shemurim, when we went and crossed the Sea of Reeds, and Moses was leading the children of Israel through, there was the expectation that, we're going to get to that promised land. Dr. King, too, no doubt after some of those marches, he thought, wow, now we're doing it. Our movement is here. We have Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel right here, and we have all these rabbis from the Reform movements right here, and we have people of different color, of different faith, of different background. They're all marching together. The time has come. Well, guess what? You keep marching, you keep marching, you keep marching, because you haven't necessarily reached it. And we get frustrated. And that's another reason why we keep teaching lessons to our children. Let them anticipate the fact that they may not get to that promised land, that there will be a wilderness that you have to cross, that there will be setbacks. Let them know from what we've experienced. Like Alvin Fine taught, he said, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, not at some victory point along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. That's our life. Not just from setback to glorious promised land and everything is working out, but we have to struggle. We have to go through wilderness. We have to go through setbacks. And that's another reason why we teach our children. The Midrash, and about this week's Torah portion, keeps reminding us, that the anticipation was that once Moses, Miriam, and Aaron brought our children out of slavery with God's miracles, right, that we cross the Sea of Reeds and we would get to Sinai and we get the Torah. The plan was in 1 year that they would navigate all through the Sinai Peninsula. They'd get to the promised land, the land of our ancestors, the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, and there we would have the first Passover Seder in the land of Israel, 1 year after the freedom from slavery. Just as we say, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim, that next year we'll have our Passover Seder in Jerusalem. The intention was, God thought Moses, Miriam, that we would say, L'shana haba'ah be'eretz Israel, in the year, next year at this time, all of us guys were going to be in the promised land. We're going to be in the land of Israel. But that didn't work out. That's not how it happened. We had 40 years of struggle, of frustration, of setback, some of it because of enemies, and sometimes the enemies were out, and sometimes the enemies in. Sometimes it was the doubters, the cynics, the critics who had us fall back and start to doubt. It caused 40 years of wandering in that desert until we were ready. That's a lesson that Dr. King took, and he tried to teach to his children, to teach all the followers. It's a lesson that our ancestors have taught throughout every generation. Don't get impatient. Don't give up. Don't have expectations that we can't meet. We had not only Dr. Martin Luther King's celebration this past week, we also had the inauguration of a new president. We brought in a new administration, a new Congress. But just as we have great hope for them, we also know that they're not going to solve all of our problems, that all of the issues are going to go away right away. Hope does spring eternal. But man, you better have some patience with it, or you're going to get really frustrated. There is a great achievement along our way. They will have some victories. We will also have some failures, and we'll have some defeats. We'll have some setbacks and frustrations, and still we will never give up. That was the message of the man who wrote that phrase, that hope springs eternal. It was Alexander Pope in the 18th century, the great English poet. He said, "Hope humbly then, with trembling pinions soar. Wait the great teacher, death and God adore. What future bliss gives not thee to know, but gives that hope to be thy blessing now. Hope springs eternal in the human breast. Man never is, but always to be blessed. The soul, uneasy and confined from home, rests and expatiates in a life to come." And so it is. We conclude this momentous week. We have paused to reflect and honor the legacy of heroes. We have paused to celebrate with trepidation and blossoming hope as this nation welcomed President Joe Biden as our 46th president. How fitting it is that it occurred as we read in our Torah the inspiring story of the Exodus, the beginning of a fateful new chapter in the lives of our ancestral journey, a story that continues to inspire people of so many different faiths, nations, and eras. And so again, O people of Israel, we continue that trek, knowing that we still have so much more work to do, knowing that there are yet challenges to face, knowing that there will still be defeats, and yet also knowing that victory lies not at some high place, not at reaching some magical Shangri-La, a place where there will only be bliss and ease. Rather, victory lies in making the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. As we go from that journey, from the jails of Egypt, from slavery to that promised land, you got to hope that there's going to be, come on up, we're going to sing a song. There's got to hope that there's going to be something for us, because we've been going through the oppression. We've been going through social and civil dispute and division. We've been going through this COVID, for goodness sakes. It's been a year, Susie. So when are we going to get to that time, that place? Is there that place for us? We got a song for you. Be nice. There's a place for us, a promised plan for us. Up from Egypt with haste depart, for Eretz Yisrael. There's a vaccine for us, a COVID vaccine for us, overcoming this deadly plague, so we can join again. There's a time for us, a time of peace for us, a time for healing our nation's strife, time to mend, time to care. Someday, somewhere, we'll find a new way of living. We'll share sweet words of thanksgiving. Someday, there's a place for us at Sinai. At Sinai, a place for us. Hold on tight for a few more months. Wear a mask, get a vaccine. Somehow, someday, somewhere. All right, you know what we're talking about. So if you got the message that we're going to get that vaccine, we're going to get back here, and things are going to work out. I believe it. It's going to take some time still. We still have some wilderness to get through, but don't lose hope. But we can continue with Elena.
We can. On page 586, please ride.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו ככם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי מלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. The Kaddish Tome is on page 598. Please be seated for just a few moments. We want to make sure that we take time to think about those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. Just this week, we laid to rest Sarah Fishbein, 36 years old, the daughter of longtime Temple Sinai member Goldie and Steve Fishbein. Now, Steve, of course, passed away 3 years ago. To Goldie and to Sarah's daughter, Chloe, our heart goes out to you. We also think of those who died within the last 30 days and their observance of Shloshim. Lynn Gilberg, the aunt of Bob, Tammy Steen, and the great aunt of Taylor, Madison, and Carter. And of Kristen Powell Gottschalk, the niece of Ralph and Shirley Beer Powell. And we think of those who died at this season in years past, whose yahrzeits were observed this week. Warren Boyven, Olivia Botham, Barbara Bubis, Dorothy Weinberg Butler, Louis Coffey, Herb Cohen, Marjorie Cohen, Lev Dvorkin, Joyce Dye, Mary Evans, Robert Evans, Barbara Fishkin, Max Genshaft, Walter Gershow, Gerald Goldberg, Shirley Gordon, Carol Grope, David Harris, Zelda Hughes, Evelyn Jacobs, Norman Jacobs, Sidney Jacobs, Lottie Jonas, Joe Cates, Lynn Carlson, Guida Keene, Norman Keene, Earl Keel, William Klum, Florence Kolonovich, Leonard Kurtz, Len Kurtz, Louis Landau, Morris Lesser, Fan Levy, Earl Libman, Earl Marcus, Jack Marcus, Sidney Marks, Sam Messina, Leonard Nadell, Mooney Oster, Joseph Picker, Bud Pohl, Marvin Randall, Shirley Rosenson, Sam Ross, Ted Rudin, Ira Sampson, Len Schiff, Alan Schneider, Sam Stool, Dorothy Streer, Arthur Thaw, Sadie Tone, Sandra Waldman, Harold Wernz, Rudolph Wolf, Serena Jenkinson, and Louis Yortz. As we think of them, we say, Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for us a blessing. If you're able, let's rise and recite the mourner's kaddish, the Kaddish Tome, in their memory and in their honor. We're on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma devarach chirotei, ve'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomei v'chayedecho be'Israel, ba'agalav izman kari, v'imru amen. Yeshemei rabbah mavarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'tadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudusha, b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma, v'imru amen. Yesh shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, v'akol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'akol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Please be seated. Just a couple of closing announcements.
And then we'll have a little Kiddush and a closing song. First of all, on Sunday, we have a virtual Chavarot happy hour. That's at 5 p.m. Now, I also have my Sinai Sundays class at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. So tune into that, too. Tuesday, of course, we have our Parashat Shavua class. On Wednesday, Lifelong Jewish Learning, Abby Schwartz, the Book of Job through art, which is going to be a lot of fun. And there's a lot of other things. Makes a special mention. Of course, we also have our challah baking with Rabbi Jordy. That's going to be at Friday, January the 29th at 11 a.m. And on next Shabbat, there's a virtual concert with New York City-based vocalist Hadar and her all-star New York City-based band of Jewish musicians. They're all performing a live, full concert, a virtual concert, and all you have to do is tune in. So look for our daily docket that Yoni is so good, he sends us out all the time, and look for it, and every morning you'll come out, and you have the hyperlink, you just press it on, tune it, and just enjoy the concert, enjoy the service, enjoy the program. I love to see you guys on Zoom too. I can see the faces, we can talk back and forth. It's a lot of fun. So lots of different things that are going on, and lots to do Kiddush, and we'll have our closing song then. Don't forget to pause if you want. Right after the service, we'll join together for a little schmooze, a chance to say hello. That's right afterwards. Is it the same? Or do they have to log out and click on something else? You have to log out and click because it's a Zoom, right? So we'll see you in a few minutes. Here we go. וירא ויבוקר יום השישי ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים ביום השביעי וקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגופן ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קדשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה ורצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי כל יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים. How about Ein Kelohenu? That's a good one to close, isn't it?
It's awesome.
It's wonderful. It's on page 626. You guys know it. Ein Kelohenu 626. This was one of Moses and Miriam's favorite songs.
Ein Kelohenu,
Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Michelohenu, Michadonenu, Michemalkenu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkenu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Yivorechech Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ye'er Adonai panav alecha v'chonecha. Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yismerecha shalom. May God bless you and protect you and all of your loved ones. May God shine the grace of divinity upon you so that you feel God's grace and share that grace that you have. Nurture it and shine it with others. And may God grant you the blessing of peace, of shalom, of wholeness, of healing. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat shalom. See you at the Zoom.
Shabbat shalom.